The rivalry is back on.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first official podcast of the Bring the Juice podcast. I'm your host, as always, Cody Felger. Joining me, Derek Larger. And Derek, what do you think of the new name, man?
Oh, I love it, man. I mean, I think it's great. It's definitely something that the Colts have been trying to adopt, and that's why we wanted to bring it in. Bring the Juice just, sounds like a really great name. It's high energy, and high pumps, and you just want to be able to run through walls, right? That's exactly what you want to do. Hopefully that's not what you want to do after listening to our podcast, but you get the metaphor. But either way, I'm really excited for the name change. I think it's really cool. I'm glad that you and Andrew were willing to do it, and I'm glad that we can take this into another direction.
For sure, and for those of you who don't know the reference, so Frank Reich has worn a shirt that says "Got Juice" on it, and that's kind of where we drew our inspiration for this podcast. And so, originally I had it as my name, the Cody Felger Podcast. That was really before Derek and Andrew and anybody really had taken on much of a role here yet. And just realizing how much those guys do, it's just like, well, why wouldn't I want, to give them credit? So Bring the Juice podcast is great. It has a lot more energy, and dude, I'm excited. And speaking of energy, I'm excited for this game, as right now the Colts sitting there at 5-2 atop the AFC South. But they have a hard football game potentially to face. I mean, this more than I think the records would indicate, with the Steelers being 3-4 right now. But the Steelers aren't a bad football team either, and they're pretty well constructed, I would say, overall, even with their backup quarterback.
You're absolutely right. And I kind of mentioned it earlier in the week, how I thought that this Pittsburgh Steelers team is a lot more like the Colts than a lot of people seem to think. They have the same kind of philosophy that they're going through right now. Obviously, I'm not comparing Jacoby Brissett here to Mason Rudolph, but I'm saying that what the Pittsburgh Steelers are trying to do is the exact same thing that the Colts are trying to do, was that, they had to adjust to their best quarterback going down or out for this reason. And Jacoby Brissett had to step in, as did Mason Rudolph have to now. And they're running the ball a lot more effectively now, which is something the Colts have been able to do. One thing to keep an eye on is James Conner being injured. He suffered some kind of contusion at the very end of the Dolphins game Monday night. Don't know how bad that is. They said he's expected to play, but they don't know how bad that's going to affect him. But either way, even if he's in, James Conner's definitely been running the ball very well the last few weeks. It'll definitely be interesting to see how the Colts stop this run game, because they obviously need to figure things out. And I think that with the Steelers being, a lot more effective offensively over the last few weeks, but I'm not really going to say that what they've done the last few weeks is really warranted. I mean, they faced the Bengals, right? That was their first win of the season. The Bengals have not won a game yet. And then they faced the Chargers, who over the last few weeks have just been god-awful. They haven't been able to get pressure on the quarterback at all. And then they go in and face the winless Miami Dolphins. When they face a real team with a real defense like the Indianapolis Colts have, I will then give them credit when they're able to exploit some of those. And, I mean, even though their wide receivers have been playing very well, like I said, I'm not ready to crown them as, potentially getting back to where they wanted to be. Also, real quick note for you here, Cody. I was looking at this earlier on Instagram and saw that the Steelers posted a picture saying that Mason Rudolph is the first quarterback in NFL history to win his first two career games on Monday Night Football. So both of his wins that came from him actually starting were from the Bengals when they played Monday night, and then obviously beating the Dolphins on Monday night. I would say that's impressive, or at least interesting, if it weren't for the fact that they were facing the Bengals and the Dolphins. I mean, I'm sorry, say what you want. Those two teams are trash, and that's not appealing to me. I mean, I'm sure I'm not the only one that mentioned in the comment section that same exact thing. But either way, yeah, this offense is doing really well right now with Pittsburgh. They're starting to figure things out. And that defense right now, they've been plenty good over the last few weeks. They've certainly been forcing a lot of turnovers and getting pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. And going back to James Conner, I think they said it was an AC strain, but he hopes to play on Sunday, so that'll be definitely worth monitoring. But you're right, Derek. Like this Pittsburgh offense, on paper at least, they're not the best offense. I mean, they're 19th in points per game, 28th in total yards, 24th in rushing yards per game, 29th in passing yards per game. So statistically, they're not very good. But when it comes to Sunday, like you just never know. And also that defense, man, they're just swarming. Like this Pittsburgh defense is no joke. And it's kind of interesting. Something that I noticed that really stood out to me was the turnover differential. And that must just be a credit. I don't watch the Steelers again, but that must just be a credit to how this defense turns the ball over and forces turnovers. And because right now Pittsburgh is second in the league at plus 10. So that means they have 10 more turnovers that they forced than that they have committed. And, that's kind of what you need if you want to have a winning formula. You don't turn the ball over and you take care of the ball. And, if you have a good defense that can lead you through, we've seen that with a lot of good teams who have really good defenses. You just don't turn the ball over and let your defense go to work. So Pittsburgh right now, they're really good at not turning the ball over. And they're really good about forcing turnovers. And so that'll be interesting to see. The Colts right now are at zero turnover differential, and that's good for 8th in the league. And so they don't, the Colts, we know Jacoby Brissett doesn't turn the ball over a lot. He has had a few of his share of boneheaded mistakes for sure. But overall, Jacoby Brissett's not a guy that turns the ball over. He's more of I don't want to say game manager because that holds a negative connotation, but I mean, he just takes care of the football, and that's what you really need, especially against a Pittsburgh defense, man, that at least on paper and from what I've heard is a really, really solid unit and a good unit at getting the ball turned over. So, Derek, my question to you is what do you think the Colts are going to have to do offensively to kind of counteract this really stellar Steelers defense?
Well, the first thing they absolutely have to do is they have to be better on the offensive line this week. I'm sorry, but they have T.J. Watt coming off the edge. T.J. Watt has been very, very good recently at getting to the quarterback. Cameron Hayward is one of the better interior D linemen when it comes to the run game. So that's going to be those are going to be some things they have to address. And one thing you have to mention is Devin Bush. Devin Bush, the inside linebacker for the Steelers, he's been phenomenal. He's been all over the field, both in the run game and in the pass game. He's had a lot of their turnovers recently. I mean, I'm not going to really give credit to their secondary from this last game against the Dolphins and a couple of games against Bengals because the quarterbacks in that game, they were just flinging the ball everywhere. I'm sorry, but if you did watch that Dolphins game and that Dolphins-Steelers game, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Every single one of those interceptions that Ryan Fitzpatrick threw, every single one of them, he was throwing it off his back foot as he was getting hit. I mean, that will always get picked. It's just how it is. So I'm not really going to give too much credit to their secondary right now, but I will give credit to their front seven. Their front seven has been very good over these last few weeks of limiting opponents in what they should do. Now, there have been some points where they could get exposed. I know that on the outside, curl routes and out routes, I know definitely hurt them. The Miami Dolphins were actually able to do that ahead of time. And here's the thing. The Colts, we know, have struggled early in the season, right? They are struggled early in the season in regards to getting their offense going in the first half. That's always been an issue. Well, the Steelers kind of have that issue on the defensive side. Their first half is sometimes they're difficult to get in sync and everything. So the Colts need to take advantage in the first half. If the Colts can win the first half, I do believe they'll win this game just fine. They just need to come out actually swinging. And I hope that they're able to do this because they are going to be in Pittsburgh. They're not going to be at home this time. They're going to be in Pittsburgh. It's going to be cold. It's going to be a good test to see what this offense can do. I think that you have to be able to run the ball. Just that offensive line has to be able to do better this time around because if they don't, and then the Steelers get to them, then that front seven's going to have create havoc on that offense. So they need to be able to run the ball, and they need to be able to protect Jacoby, and then I think they should be fine.
Yeah, and I was just looking up a few statistics here. So Pittsburgh defense right now, in the league rankings, they're 10th overall in yards per game allowed. They're 15th in rushing yards per game allowed. They allow 103 yards per game, so you can run the ball on them. And they're 13th in passing yards per game. But the thing that stood out to me, Derek, that I just had mentioned before is the turnovers. So right now, in the league, in turnovers, number 1, New England, 25 turnovers forced. Number 2, Pittsburgh, 19 turnovers forced. So they're a unit that they might allow the chunk plays, but they turn the ball over when they need to. And that's something that the Colts are just going to have to really attack is, especially the running game. Yeah, they're not awful at stopping the run, but if there is a chink in the armor for this Pittsburgh defense, it's definitely running the football. And we know the Colts have come out this year and really wanted to make it an effort to be a running football team. And what better way to do it than against the Pittsburgh defense, really the middle of the pack defense. I think they're 15th overall in run defense right now. I think that's where you got to attack them, Derek. I think it's where you got to attack them early and often. But you're right. The Colts offensive line got manhandled this last week against Denver, which is really surprising considering we had said multiple times that this Colts offensive line is the best in football. And really, we know the kind of player Von Miller is, but I mean, really, that season, the season that he has not been one of his best seasons. I mean, it's been probably statistically one of his most poor seasons, and I think it's just up there with age. It just naturally happens, but he was unbelievable on Sunday. And this Colts offensive line everybody was getting beat. And it wasn't just, Mark Glowinski or Braden Smith. It was everybody. They were getting beat. They were getting manhandled at the line. And, if Jacoby Brissett doesn't break that, obviously that insane play in the end zone, if he doesn't break that tackle, that's 5 sacks that the Colts offensive line allowed. And I think there was another play earlier in the game where Jacoby Brissett broke another tackle. So it could have been 6 sacks. And I'm sure there are other plays as well. But this Colts offensive line, they simply have to play better, and they have to run the ball. They ran the ball okay, I think, against Denver, but, I mean, Denver's, they have a really good, I would say they have a really good secondary we've talked about. But, I felt like you could run the ball, and you should have run the ball, even better than you did. I think that falls on the offensive line again. You just got to get better. And I think they know that, and they're going to work to get better, but if the Colts want any chance of moving on this Pittsburgh defense and scoring some points, they got to establish the run early, and they got to establish it often. And they got to get back. They got to get their mojo back.
Yeah, I totally agree. This offense definitely needs to get back to how they built their reputation, and that's running the football. They have to be able to do that in order to be able to keep their offense moving. But we've kind of talked a lot about the offense here. Let's take a look at the defense here and some of the injury reports, because I have the injury report right here for me in case people didn't see. And this might change a little bit by Friday whenever we get this thing up. But here's the Thursday one, was that Danico Autry was a full participant in Thursday's practice, so that's a good sign that whatever injury he sustained in that Denver game was not serious. So it looks like he's going to be able to play. That's a great sign. And another one that's really bad right now is Pierre Desir has not practiced both days, Wednesday and Thursday. It's starting to make me mad just how much he's missed, because I feel like he's healthy enough to play, and then all of a sudden he just doesn't. I don't understand, but at least the good thing is Kenny Moore is going to be was a full participant. Jabal Sheard was a full participant. Kahari Willis was. T.Y. Hilton did not practice Thursday, but I think mostly I think that was just a rest day, because we know how T.Y. Hilton is. Quentin Nelson was a limited participant in both Wednesday and Thursday's practice. Tyquan Lewis was a full participant in both practices, so we should maybe see Tyquan Lewis back. And don't forget, we're going to get Devin Funchess back here in the next week or so. And Eric Ebron was a non-participant. I think that was mainly just a rest day. And Malik Hooker and Justin Houston were both limited participants. So that it's pretty encouraging. I mean, it seems like the majority of this injury report is going to end up playing on Sunday against the Steelers. So that's not an issue. My biggest issue here, Cody, and I'll ask you this. If Pierre Desir does not suit up again, how bad is that for a defense? Because we saw Denver able to go up against Rocky Sin and make him pay all game long. I mean, does it make you a little nervous that if Pierre Desir doesn't play again, that this Pittsburgh offense can actually move the ball and on the air with us this time?
It makes me very nervous because we saw what happened last week. I believe there was 5 pass interference calls against the rookie last week against Cortland Sutton. And the weird thing was he was like shadowing Cortland Sutton the whole game. And he kind of got thinking, after the 3rd penalty, the 4th penalty, the 5th penalty, you're just like, okay, why are we still having him shadow Cortland Sutton when obviously it's not going well for him? But we've heard so much about Rocky Sin in the offseason from his coaches and stuff at Temple. And just knowing, he's a guy who, when he has a rough game, he's definitely a hard worker. And he's one of the toughest guys probably on the Colts roster, at least from what I've heard from coaches and other things like that. But, yeah, man, like it is a little bit concerning considering what happened last week. But, I think you got to make some changes if you're Matt Eberflus at this point. Maybe that doesn't mean you take Rocky Sin off the field if Pierre Desir is not able to go. But, what about Quincy Wilson a little bit more? He was a healthy scratch. You think more, what if you put somebody else, shadowing their best receiver on Juju? I don't know, but if you're Matt Eberflus, you got to do something. You can't just let your guy out there on an island if you saw what happened last week. And I think he will. I think that he would understand that and he would do something about that. But certainly Pierre Desir not being able to go for if it's another week he's not able to go, that's definitely a huge loss because he has by far been the Colts' best corner this season. So it's just, it's a little bit concerning, but, knowing the kind of player that Rocky Sin is and the kind of player that the coaches, both at Temple and Indianapolis, have kind of talked about, it makes me nervous on one hand, but on the other hand, he's a rookie. He's a guy that's going to make rookie mistakes and he's going to grow from them and he's going to learn from them. And I mean, if this was a 5-6 year veteran, I might be more concerned. But, we've seen it. Like, I think as Colts fans, Derek, we're a little bit spoiled because we've seen some amazing rookie seasons. I mean, we saw Dwight Freeney years ago. I think he broke the rookie sack record. I mean, Darius Leonard, obviously, last year was just absolutely insane, all-pro as a rookie. And so I think we're a little bit spoiled of thinking all players should be like that. But in reality, Derek, it takes guys time. It takes certain guys different time to develop. And, it's not an easy task lining up against Cortland Sutton, who's been really good this year for Denver. But overall, man, I think that he'll be okay. I think Matt Eberflus just needs to do stuff to help him out a little bit and gain him some more confidence as a rookie. But like I said, like it takes time for some of these guys, and some guys it takes longer to develop than others. Like we saw that last year with Kamoko Toure, and kind of asking. I mean, I remember Derek, some people were even asking last year, is Kamoko Toure a bust? And I was just like, how can you ask that question? Because, yeah, he's a rookie. Yeah, he didn't have a great rookie season. He didn't have a Darius Leonard type season or a Nyheim Hines type season. But at the same time, like, we saw this year, he started to come on before he got injured. And so it just takes different guys, different time to develop. And I think he'll be all right overall. But, certainly for this game, Juju's one of the best receivers in the league. So I think the Colts have to help him out. I think that would be not wise to leave the rookie one-on-one on an island against a great receiver like Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. We definitely need to make sure we do this. And here's another thing I want to go to this topic because you mentioned it, Cody, in our podcast group on Twitter and our DMs. I'm going to just say this right now just because everyone's talking about it. Apparently, there's an anonymous source out there. It's a rumor that T.Y. Hilton's calf injury or his knee is so bad that he's apparently out for the season. That's a rumor. It's not confirmed. It's nothing. But I'm going to give credit where credit is due here. Luke Diamond at For the Culture mentioned in one of his tweets earlier, because Cody, you mentioned how you saw this report on Reddit. That's obviously where a lot of people get their stuff from. But apparently, he showed a video of earlier today. T.Y. Hilton certainly didn't look like he was in any pain. Certainly didn't look like he was unhappy and he was speaking with media and everything. And apparently it's this page called RWJEHS. Apparently had a article or something put out that says, well, according to, and I quote, this is a quote from Reddit, from this page where he was saying that T.Y. Hilton's gone here. Says, well, according to an inside source that got banned from r/fantasy football, Ty is out for the season, is getting an MRI this morning, which meant Thursday morning, and it will be announced later today that he will be out for the season. Well, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon when we're doing this, and I haven't heard anything as of recently. I mean, Luke pretty much just put it on the dot of what Andrew and I and Sam were trying to tell you earlier, Cody, that, inside sources don't mean a dang thing when it comes to Reddit. Anyone can post anything, especially when you mention in quotations an inside source and was banned from r/fantasy football. It's not necessarily a great thing to help your argument out when you're mentioning that. But of course, obviously, again, we have no idea of anything, but I'm almost 100% positive that this is not true. I think that everyone is kind of mentioning how, we were so taken aback by the Andrew Luck news that everyone's just playing pranks on the Colts fan base now. I mean, I feel like that's what it is. They're just playing pranks on us now because it's Halloween. It's people are just going crazy. I almost am positive. I'm quite positive that if T.Y. Hilton was done for the season, quite positive he would not have practiced Wednesday and would obviously have had a lot more worse things happen to him. So I just wanted to address that real quick because we both were thinking about it before this podcast. We were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, again, that's just something that, I was scrolling through Twitter and some guy said it and I was like, it's probably not true. But I just wanted to let, you guys send that in a message and just let you guys know, hey, if this happens, I hope it doesn't happen. I think it doesn't look super reliable, but if it does happen, I just want to make you guys kind of prepared for it. And that's really what I was coming with. But obviously, when we drop this podcast, we're recording it right now on Thursday evening. But when we drop this podcast on Friday, obviously if some news has broken by then, this podcast will be irrelevant. But right now, as we stand here at 4 o'clock, it's not looking like that's going to happen. But you never know, and I just hate sometimes people coming up with random rumors of certain stuff like that. Because most of the time they're not true. And I think as Colts fans, as you heard that rumor, and then it actually came true, I think a little bit, it can be a little bit frightening because you're just like, man, this just happened to us. You heard that thing earlier in the year when Darius Leonard, with I believe it was Bleacher Report, that said he thought about retiring when Darius Leonard had come out and said that's not true at all. So there's just a lot of rumors up there, a lot of things that people make up to try to become relevant and have headlines and stuff like that. So, yeah, man, again, I just was saying what potentially I heard. I don't think I believe it, but I just wanted to make you guys aware of that. And if it's a false rumor, fine, that's okay. But that was really where I was coming from, Derek. It was just like, yep, this is what somebody had said and they're freaking out about it. They're probably not freaking out about it for the right reasons. Probably not even anything to really note, but never know. So that's really where I was coming from. And obviously that would be a huge blow to the Colts if that did happen. But, it doesn't look like it's going to happen, but who knows at this point. We never thought Andrew Luck would retire at, close to 30. So you just never know.
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. It's really easy as a Colts fan to kind of get thrown into that mix now because, like we've mentioned before, Andrew Luck leaving, nobody really expected that. So, of course, it's easy to throw Colts fans under the bus because you're going to get a reaction out of them. But, I'm not going to trust Reddit. At the end of the day, I'll trust T.Y. Hilton's word. I'll trust the Colts' word if that were to come true. I'm quite positive that's not the case. But anyway, here, so that way we can move on from this. I want to kind of mention my 3 keys for this game. I know that, Cody, you probably have some of your own, But I think the first thing we need to do is be able to run the ball. We have to be able to run the football in this game, or else it's going to be a stalemate. And number two, the offensive line needs to perform in this one. I don't care about 1 sack. I don't really care about 2 sacks. I just don't want anything more than that, because the more pressure they get on Jacoby Brissett, the worse this game's going to be, because that front seven, like I mentioned, is definitely going to hurt. And the biggest one here is, does the Colts secondary bounce back? Because I'm not insanely worried about the Colts rush defense right now. Jabal Sheard's most likely going to play. Danico Autry's most likely going to play. Excuse me. We're going to have a couple of guys from injury report coming back. Tyquan Lewis and Ben Benegu's been playing a lot better recently. So we're definitely getting some of our defensive linemen back, and I'm not too worried about how we're going to stop James Conner. I think that we're going to be able to do that. It's just the ultimate thing is, how does the secondary respond if Here doesn't play? And even if he does play, this secondary that we're playing, this wide receiver core that we're facing this time around actually has a lot of good weapons in it as compared to the last few weeks. And I know they don't really have the quarterback to really match that wide receiver core, but nonetheless, these wide receivers, like we mentioned, even though Juju's had a terrible year statistically, Juju's still a really good wide receiver, and they have Vance McDonald and a couple of other threats that can definitely hurt us. Those are my 3 things. Basically, can we run the ball? Does the offensive line perform? And does the secondary come back and respond with a vengeance as compared to what they did in the last few weeks? What were some things that you think the Colts need to do in order to win this game?
Yeah, and you took some of the ones that I was thinking. I think that those are definitely some good keys if the Colts want to be victorious. The big one for me, Derek, that I'll just say one, is, can these young players step up and continue to step up? But by young players, I mean first or second year guys. I'm thinking, Paris Campbell hasn't really done anything yet. Hasn't really been great for you. I mean, he's had like 1 touchdown the whole year. He's been injured. Kari Willis, who is practicing, which is a great sign. Can he continue to develop? Because I believe Bleacher Report released an article talking about the top steals from this year's draft, and Kari Willis was on there. And they said he was one of the biggest steals of the draft. And Willis has definitely played really well at that strong safety position, and looks to be, at least at this point in time, to be the complement to Malik Hooker in the near future. So that's definitely a positive sign. And then Ben Benegu, who we've talked about, can he continue? He had a really good game against Denver. Can he continue to get pressure and kind of fill in that void that was left when Danico Autry went on IR a couple weeks ago? And we've talked about Rocky Ya-Sin. Can he bounce back from that really abysmal performance? Just a flag-filled night for the rookie. Can he step up and continue to grow into his position? So my big thing, Derek, on top of your other things, is these rookies and these young players. Can they continue to step up? And can they continue to be key cogs in your defense and your offense? So that's my big key to the game. I just need to see a little bit more from some of these young players, and then I just need to see more consistent play, and can they do it again and again from some of those players who have played really well that are rookies and second-year players. So that's my key for the game. I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a hard-fought game, similar to that Denver game. I didn't think that Denver game would be that close, but I think that the Pittsburgh game will be a low-scoring game, but I think ultimately the Colts come out on top, and we can talk about that in a little bit when we talk about our game predictions. So, yeah, that's my key, Derek.
Yeah, and those we already saw my keys. And real quick fact here before new news before we get into my prediction here. I'm sure Colts fans have probably seen it. Marvin Harrison's son, Marvin Harrison Jr., the 4-star wide receiver, has committed to Ohio State University. Just another fun fact there, being the son of Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison, and obviously being a Buckeye fan like myself, definitely a great pickup. Ohio State's about to become the best wide receiver corps in all of college football right now. They have the best defensive back class, and they're going to have the best wide receiver class here soon anyway. So just that quick thing there. And going into my prediction here, I think another thing here, quick before I do it, is Darius Leonard's definitely going to have to bring the juice. No pun intended there. He definitely needs to, like he did against Denver in the end. Everyone, if you haven't seen the mic'd up version of Darius Leonard during the game against Denver, you need to go watch it. It's really funny and real fun to watch. I think Darius Leonard needs to be that guy, and I think the Colts pull this one out, and honestly think it's going to be another nail biter. As much as I hate to say it, I do think it will be, just because I think the Steelers are getting a lot better. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game per se. I think this is going to be a 20-17 game myself. So
Yeah, in that same vein, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. My prediction, the prediction that keeps going into my head is 16-13, Colts on top. Last-second field goal by Adam Vinatieri again gives them the win. Or, if it's not a last-second, it's sort of last-second field goal, and the Colts defense just wins it for them. That's my prediction, 16-13. I definitely think it's going to be a low-scoring game because, let's be real, like none of these offenses really are the juggernauts. They're not the New Orleans, they're not the New England type offenses. I guess New England really has not had a great offense, but in the past, those type of offenses, that's not really what the Colts or really the Steelers are without Big Ben. So that's why I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. Both of these defenses are playing really well right now. And I think it's going to be a close game, but ultimately, man, I think the Colts are going to come out on top, and they're going to sit there. They're going to sit there 6-2 atop the AFC South still.
Yep, that's really all you can hope for is that the Colts win this one again, and at the end of this week they'll be 6-2 going out of Week 9 and still remain at the top of the AFC South. And here's the funny thing: is the Texans have to face the Jaguars this upcoming week, and that's obviously a game in London, so that'll be a Sunday morning game. I think a lot of people have mentioned how the Jaguars should just relocate to London and should just change their name to the London Jaguars because, they spend more time in London than any other team in the NFL. The Jaguars are so used to playing in London. So you never know. The Jaguars could have the Texans on upset this week. You never know. But I don't think that'll happen, but it still could possibly be a thing.
Yeah, and all these AFC South teams right now are right in the mix. I think the Titans are 4-4, the Jaguars are 4-4, and the Texans are right there, a game behind the Colts. So I would certainly not be mad if the Jaguars went and played upset. And divisional game, you never know what can happen. But yeah, man, I kind of think Florida has enough teams already, right? They have Miami, Tampa Bay, and then they have Jacksonville, obviously. I don't think it would hurt, I don't think it would hurt, no. The London Jaguars, that'd be interesting.
Hey, they've always talked about expanding, so.
Yeah, you never know. Sure, we could do it.
I'd be seeing it.
Well, hopefully this Sunday the Colts can bring the juice. And with that, thanks guys for listening so much, and go Colts.